Thank you so much, Mr. Dennis Busulwa. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the organizing team led by Madame Jalia Justin Paji Mchala Sekamate and her organizing committee for putting together such a wonderful conference. I want to thank the sponsors that made this possible, our sponsors in the UK and our sponsors here in the United States. And I want to also thank all the other individual sponsors and all the individuals that have participated and played part in making this conference possible, because I understand that Hajat Jalia could not do this on her own without the support of everyone who has helped her give her ideas, make suggestions, connect her to people who matter, and everyone who has taken their time off the day, like a Friday, irrespective of all the things that are happening in our country. You have braved the circumstances and the situation and come to our conference. That really means a lot to us. Thank you so much. I want to take a special moment to recognize my fellow acid attack survivors who have come from the different parts of the country to come and join us as we say no to gender-based violence, as we join the world to commemorate the 16 days of activism against gender violence, and as we stand today to launch this capital campaign for the Center for Rehabilitation and Resource Programs, or we can say the Rehabilitation and Resource Center. The reason behind, or the vision behind the Rehabilitation and Resource Center is from lived experience. Just like Madame Sharita mentioned, just like Dr. Christine Namatov mentioned and her team in the hospital, just like Sheila mentioned human rights, just like everyone has mentioned, Mr. Patrick has talked about the resources, and we talk about all those resources. I left Uganda about 6 years ago, and Sharita just mentioned it. She went back to school. The reason I went back to school is because I wanted to educate myself of how I can become an advocate. I was already an activist in Uganda after, in fact, shortly before this happened to me. And then I spearheaded the campaign to raise awareness of acid attack violence, because while I was a women's and girls' rights activist working for a UNICEF program, I became a victim of acid attack violence. Shortly before that, I had been in so many community dialogues where we are talking about gender violence in civil society, and I had never heard about acid attacks until I was an acid attack victim in Mulago Hospital. And I remember I always had conversations with the doctors and the nurses who took care of my burn wounds, and they gave me a lot of information. And each time we were in the bathroom, they were dressing my wounds, my entire face. This face has been rebuilt for the past 9 years. I lost my nose, just exactly like how it was mentioned that we become disabled because you lose parts of your body. I lost my nose. I was completely maimed. My face was out of proportion. I have gone through 9 years of reconstructive surgery and still going for the rest of my life. This is a lifetime impact on a victim. I don't even think that the perpetrators know what they are doing in the moment. They are doing something in the moment, purchasing acid for 3,500, or even if it is 10,000 Ugandan shillings, which is roughly $3, which is roughly 2 pounds, that is going to cause harm that is going to require a lifetime. 2 days ago, I was crying because I can't see through my eye. I had a cornea transplant, and I always have migraines or headaches, consistent headaches, yet I have to work, I have to fend for my children. So once a woman becomes an acid attack survivor and she's a mother, she continues to take care of her health and continue to take care of her children and continue to deal with the stereotype and stigma and ostracism that Madame Sheila talked about in the society. You're condemned, you're despised, you are shunned, you are blamed, you are named, you are shamed, name it. The reason we created Center for Rehabilitation of Survivors of Acid and Burns Violence, CERESAV, in 2012. I was with Madame Jalia. She was my friend before the attack. She worked on a USAID project while I worked for UNICEF. And shortly after the attack, she picked me up and she told me, Hanifa, you can still do it. You're a smart woman. All I needed was someone to remind me the person I was beyond my maimed face. Many acid attack survivors don't get that opportunity to get people who remind them who they are after the fact. I had that opportunity of people who knew the person I was beyond my maimed face. They believed in my strength and my resilience and my skills and my capabilities, and they held my hand. Jalia held my hand. We went to different offices. I went to police. I sought for help. I sought for security, and I didn't get anything, unfortunately. And that pushed me to lead the campaign and mobilize acid attack survivors and told them, just like Madame Sheila said, the narrative that the media tells about your story is what goes out there. And that's what leads to the judgment and the stigma and however we are treated in the community. So I mobilized survivors so that we can own our stories and tell our narrative. You will not believe I was in Buganda Road Court interfacing with my perpetrator, and I was asked by the magistrate to stop sharing my story on media because my story was now in court. And I had to stand my ground that morning. And I remember it made news, it made headlines across media houses. And I remember Agatari Konfufu that Madame Sheila referenced played a clip of me saying, if this is how my case is going to be handled, I'd rather not come back to court and declare today that I set my perpetrator free. Let him roam in the community so that he can finish my life, since you have chosen to treat me as a criminal in the face of my perpetrator. The reason I said that was the way I was being interrogated in the midst of my trauma. The way I saw my perpetrator was being protected, like I was there to maybe strangle him to death. All I needed was to be heard. All I needed was justice to be served. But the treatment I got was, I was like the criminal there, and I was there to prove what happened to me, to prove that I did not deserve it. So that gave me the resolve to stand up and seek justice my way. And seeking justice my way was to tell my story to whoever wished to listen, mobilize survivors to tell their stories to whoever wishes to listen, and see how we can rebuild our lives and live as strong, proactive members of our communities, and also be reaccepted back into our society. The reason behind the Rehabilitation and Resource Center that we are launching today is because while I went from the hospital back into the community, I struggled to go back to my community that knew the Hanifa before. Now I'm going back as Hanifa, the woman who was attacked with acid, for all the reasons that the media has put out there, or whoever has chosen to give me a label for why I was attacked. When I went to family saw me as a burden. They did their best, and I really do appreciate. The reason I say that I was seen as a burden, because I was a victim and I have 2 children and there is no justice. They are fearing because my perpetrator is moving out there freely. He's rich. He can bribe any office, that I will not hide it, because yes, I was called by the someone in DPP's office called me because my case was being tossed around. The file would hide, move from one court to another, from one police station to another, for about 8 solid months. Once I got a magistrate at Bulange who was interested in pursuing my case, and it made it to Buganda Road Court. Everyone wondered how it made it to Buganda Road Court. And there, eventually, it disappeared. But someone in DPP's office, that is the Directorate of Public Prosecution, called me and told me if I wanted my case to be pursued, I would pay a certain amount of money. And my response was, I do not have the money to buy justice if you cannot see that I deserve it. But I have a voice and a story to tell. So the rest is in your hands. The next I heard, there was a headline in Monitor publication that my case had been dismissed on grounds of loss of interest by the Directorate of Public Prosecution to pursue my case. And my perpetrator was acquitted of all charges. He is still at Makerere University teaching our students. Even the management or the leadership at the Makerere University cannot hold such a person accountable. No one can hold him accountable. I feel that it is our collective responsibility to hold people we know have committed crimes on human rights, who have violated human rights on other individuals, to hold them accountable. But we are so accepting in our society that we are so fearful of threats that we do not stand up. I really do applaud people like Madame Sheila and her team who stand up for human rights. They risk their lives. You know it so well. We have so many people who are in prison being charged of treason because they have stood up for human rights. I really do applaud the work that you do because it takes courage, it takes bravery, it takes sacrifice to be willing to lose your life for the sake of other people's human rights to be protected. So that I don't take it for granted. My message to the public and my message to the audience, I really thank you so much for taking time to be present. And my appeal to you is, let's partner together. We are doing this as a small group, but we are mighty because all we do is we want to give people a sense of dignity again. Acid attacks come with humiliation. There are things survivors will not tell you. But imagine a chemical that melts metal and steel poured on your body, human skin. Dr. Namatov explained how the process goes. And if it burns the skin, if you've been dressed up, no matter how elegant you're dressed up, your clothes rip off. By the time we get to the hospital, you can imagine without clothes. You're screaming, you're fighting, you're gasping for air. You don't know what to do. This humiliation, no human being deserves it. If you gave me a chance, I can't even do this to my own perpetrator because I know no one deserves this kind of humiliation. Another point I want to bring to people's attention that I keep talking about is I don't think anyone in their normal five senses and sanity can really do such a thing. When we talk about mental health, that is not a household term in our culture, I know, but I think it's time to normalize mental health conversations in our households. Someone is dealing with something. Jealousy is not normal. There is a mental health issue or behavioral health challenge behind that kind of reaction. How are we educating our people that are getting into marriages? How are they getting into those marriages? How are we preparing families that are giving off their daughters for marriages? How are we preparing families that are grooming their sons to marry someone's daughter? It's a collective effort. I appeal. Let us hold ourselves accountable and responsible to protect the next generation. Yes, this generation is gone, but this generation can set the foundation, set the stage, and lay the roadmap for the next generation to live in peace and harmony. Like Mr. Dennis said, he's into peace building. We can do this together. We can change the narrative. We can uplift the rights of survivors of gender-based violence. We can amplify their stories. We can amplify their voices. We can support their children, and all that CERESAV is trying to do. We are doing this without any support from our government. We are doing this without any support from any line ministry. Madame Jalia took me to different ministries, and each ministry I went to, You will not believe the kind of reception I always got until I had to open my mouth and I'm like, oh, so there is substance that comes out of this woman's mouth beyond just her face. But again, what did they do? So many years later, they are apologizing, but the damage is already done. The damage has continued to be done. In 2016, we led an online petition to push for the Toxic Chemicals Prohibition and Control Bill into law. Our President Museveni signed that bill into law in January 2016. We were at the forefront of that. I led the change.org online petition that had over 280,000 signatures. We had media on ground following up that petition and holding press conferences for survivors to lead this campaign. We had the very first ever Survivor Champions program that had those survivors who led that campaign. Our motto is to empower survivors to lead, to become champions in the communities. We are not owning them. We don't own you survivors. I am a survivor myself. That's why we are using the survivor-led, asset-based, community-driven approach to empower you to lead this campaign. We are empowering you to take on the movement, go into your communities and educate and sensitize the communities on how to be treated. Stand your ground, don't be violent, don't be arrogant, just carry yourself the way you would as if nothing happened to you. The energy you give is the energy you receive back. So our champions are leading the campaign. They are going on to promote the sensitization. They have created separate groups and they are doing the work that they are supplementing on the work that we do. We equip them so well and they are out there in the community. They are on media doing it. We want more champions. We cannot have more champions if we do not have the support from the different stakeholders within the line of human rights protection, within the lines of gender equality, within the lines of promoting communities and promoting and empowering communities and women and girls. We need partnerships with organizations that have the resources that we need. We need a cocktail of resources to sustain these people. We have the support from international supporters and donors, but they would also be inspired or they would be incentivized to know that we also have local support. Please let us set the stage together as a partnership with everyone in the room. Let us be responsible. Let us hold ourselves accountable. Let us show love to people that have been shown that they don't deserve love because of what has happened to them. Let us show them love. Let us be compassionate to them. Let us embrace them. Let us show them that they matter. Oh, that is all we need. I had an opportunity to be shown that. I'm a mother and I live that with my children every day. The one thing I didn't say is that the night I was attacked in Makerere University, my ex-husband had called me to go pick up my children from his house after I had tried to live out of an abusive marriage. My case made headlines in Uganda, including being tabled in the parliament in February 2012. My case was used as a case reference for the passage of the domestic bill by now the current Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development, Betty Amongi. I have those minutes. She used my case as a reference to push for the passage of the domestic bill. What has been done since then is the question. And I think that is my question to the Minister of Gender. What has been done since February 2012 when my case, Hanifa Nakiryowa, was used as a reference to pass the domestic bill? I have been reaching out and saying I would love to partner to see how we can push these policies forward and how they can be implemented. CERESAV is ready to partner. We are demonstrating that we are ready to partner with everyone who is willing to support our efforts. We are willing to amplify voices of those who are promoting human rights. We want to partner with everyone to amplify women's rights and children's rights in our country. My last comment goes to the men. We need men role models to set the stage for other men. We have men who have daughters. Sheila put it right. I don't want to repeat her words. I may not say them right. But as men, what is our role? Because these women are our mothers as men. These women are our sisters. These women could be our daughters. And to the general public, I want to say that acid violence does not discriminate like we people discriminate. As you can hear, I was a well-educated woman. That is something I don't really always want to say, but I always highlight it to demonstrate that acid attacks or gender-based violence knows no socioeconomic boundaries. And you do not know when it is coming. Mu Luganda tugambe ekiri atabaala. We don't know when an acid attack is coming. Because people are mentally sick out there. You don't know what someone is thinking about you. Can we please hold it as a collective responsibility? I am calling on the media. Can you please grant us airtime to sensitize the public? Do I really need to pay money to educate the masses? Even the people behind media, you have people in your lives that are going through abuse. Can we please promote this education and normalize these conversations in our society? We are in the 21st century. There are conversations we need to have. There are conversations we need to change. There are narratives we need to redefine. Please, I appreciate you so much for giving me this opportunity. I want to thank everyone that has taken their time. It is now 5 a.m. my time. I was here since midnight. But I want to appreciate everyone in the different parts of the world. I want to appreciate you, Tim. I want to appreciate you, Anne. I think she's calling in from Italy. I want to appreciate Ewa Hena, who's calling in from Australia. I want to appreciate Jackie, who's calling in from the United States. I want to appreciate my brother Henry. He's calling in from Qatar. And everyone else who's calling in from Uganda, Sarah and your team. There was Rebecca Katiti, my friend. I'm so happy to see you. So ideally, these are people I have never met in person. But these are people who have believed in our mission as CERESAV and what we do. We have provided surgeries, we have given medical support, we are trying to work with Chirudu Hospital, with the doctors to make sure that where they need support, we are there. And we need the support of the ministries. If we are bringing in potential partners who want to bring medical supplies, can we please have clearance through customs without having to pay for that? Can we please have clearance through the airport? Can we please have the hospital freely receive these supplies when they come? Because we are being held by all those barriers. Can we remove the barriers that prevent us from doing the common good? Because this is something that we are doing out of charity. I'm not being paid to do this. No one sent me to start this kind of work. No one sent Madame Jalia and her family to do this kind of work. This is a charitable cause she is doing, not because she's too wealthy, but because she has a friend she watched and see go through this and it touched her heart. Can our hearts be touched as people who have families and who join hands together to stand with acid attack violence survivors in Uganda and set the stage for all other acid attack violence survivors around the world and say that Uganda set the stage? Uganda has this model that we can replicate in our system and see how we can support women and girls. Can we educate our boys how to treat women? Can we do these programs in schools and in our communities together with other civil society organizations? That is my appeal. And again, I thank you so much. Thank you for coming, and I hand it over back to Mr. Dennis Busurwa.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've heard that story. You can go to YouTube and see that story very well. She said so much, but most importantly, she decided not to be defined by our past, but to be defined by our present. She rose up to the challenge instead of glossing over those challenges. Thank you, Hanifa. Now, we still have a few minutes, about 14 minutes. If you don't mind, Hanifa, if you can have that version in Uganda for the media to capture that. Dakika ndoza nobezi batano ba mukaaga. Chali tukoze bulungi.
All right.
Ndoza ntukidde. nkusaba otuyambeko obudde obusoboka.
Okay. Neyanziza nnyo Mwami Dennis Busuulwa. Ntwala omukisa guno okwebaza abantu bonna abawaddeyo obudde bwabwe essaawa eno ne bajja ku lunaku bwe ruti mu mbeera gye tuyitamu mu ggwanga nga ffenna bwe tugimanyi, naye ne beewaayo ne bajja babeere ku mukolo guno tusobole okubeera nga tumulisa oba nga tutangaaza ku ggwanga obutabanguko mu maka kiki kye buvaamu. Nze Hanifa Nakiryowa nange banjokya acid mu mwaka gwa 2011 Desemba, era omusawo ali ku pano oyo y'omu ku basawo abanfaako nga ntuuse mu ddwaliro. Nze banjokya nzenna ne nzigwawo, naye ekikulu kye nsinza okwogerako nti ensonga eyantandise ekitongole kino nti nali nkola mu human rights, nga nkola mu kitongole n'ebitongole ebirala ebirwanirira eddembe ly'obuntu, ebirwanirira obutabanguko mu maka okubeera nga buvaawo, naye nga ebbanga lye namala nga nkola ne programu ya UNICEF saawulirako ensonga ya asidi ng'eyogerwako, paka lwe neesanga mu ddwaliro nga ndi mulwadde wa asidi nga banjokeza mpweddewo, banjokera Makerere awo. Kyampaliriza nga Hanifa okubeera nga era nayogera, era nali nakava mu ddwaliro emyezi 2 banteeka ku UBC, nayogera nga ngamba njagala okwokya abakyala asidi kikome ku nze Hanifa, kubanga teri muntu yeetaaga kuyita mu kintu nga kino. Obulumi bungi, okuswaza n'okuweebulwa kungi, obuzibu bwe tufuna, era ekyanzijayo okubeera nti kanjogere nti ab'amawulire bavaayo bwe baba bakola amawulire, bakola amawulire okubeera nti ganaabakolera. Bwe banaagogera bwe gajja okubawa audience. Kati oba bakutuumyeko kiki ekyakwokesa mujjawe yayagala musajja wa munnaabo, tebagwa kwagala aba bannaabwe, kibagwanidde. Noba ng'otambula mu kkubo baminga ekyo kye boogera. Kati acid survivors abasinga tetuvaayo lwa nsonga eyo. Naye nagamba Hanifa nja kuvaayo. Nkuŋŋaanye acid survivors tuveeyo. Tukulembere kaweefube ow'okugamba nti bannange ekintu kino tekirina kutuukibwa ku muntu yenna, wadde ng'agwanidde okubonerezebwa. Kabeera omukolobero w'ebibi mu ggwanga lyaffe bannange, tagwana kuyita mu kintu kifaanana bwe kiti. N'olwekyo natandika ekitongole ekyo n'omukyalo oyo Jalia mu mwaka gwa 2012 nga nakava mu ddwaliro mwaka nga gumu, kubanga nze nali nga mu ddwaliro nga ngamba abasawo abo tinteekwa okudda mu ddwaliro wano kubanga kyendabyewo kyetaaga okubaako ekikolebwawo, nga ndaba obuzibu bwe nayitangamu. Bambi abasawo bafaayo nnyo okujjanjaba ebiwundu byaffe, naye ebikozesebwa bibaggwa nako mu ddwaliro eryaffe ery'eggwanga ne bibaggwako. Abasawo nga tebasasulwa, abasawo ne babeera nga tebasobola kujja kukola mirimu gyabwe, ekivaamu ng'ebiwundu byaffe bivunda. Omuntu ataali onoonese nnyo n'ayonooneka olw'okubanga talina bujjanjabi. Lwaki talina bujjanjabi? Ebikozesebwa mu ddwaliro tebiriimu, ate eddwaliro lya ggwanga. Kaakati n'obeera nga bambi n'omuntu gwe bookeza talina busobozi. Ebiseera ebisinga tetuba na busobozi busobola kwejjanjaba, era naffe tulilayinga ku ddwaliro kuba eddwaliro lya ggwanga lirina okubeera n'ebikozesebwa ebinaatulabirira. Kino ekintu kijja tomanyi, obeera tokyetegekedde, kiringa kufiirwa, teri yeetegekerwa kufiirwa. Naye n'omuntu gwe bookeza asidi kinaaba takyetegekedde, kyekango, era tusigala ne trauma. Naye ate n'obeera mu ddwaliro ng'olina trauma, n'ova mu ddwaliro n'odda mu community n'ekwongerako trauma, ne bakutuuma buli linnya, ne bakwenyala, ne bakuziimuula, ne bakusiisaamu emimwa, abawandudde endusu ne bawanda. Kwegana oba nga bambi tolina woojja. Kyekyatukozesa ekitongole kino, tukumeekume bannaffe, tubagebe bannange, weemanyi ky'oli. Ntera okusaagasaaga nga njogera ne acid survivors bannange nti teri mubi gwe bookya acid, kuba bagenda kwokyera ki ng'oli mubi? Kuba obeera tolina makulu mu nsi. N'olwekyo lekeraawo okwetunuulira olw'ekyo kye bakoze nti olw'okuba bakwokeza acid, gwe ng'omuntu, gwe nga gwe ki kye weenyumirizaamu? Obulamu wali wabuteeka mu ndabikayo ya kungulu, kiki osobola okwekolera okwezzaawo? So kyekyo kye tukola mu kitongole kyaffe, okubeera nga tubudaabuda ba acid survivors, okubazza mu mbeera yaabwe, mu kifaananyi kyabwe nga bo, beyond endabikene ey'okungulu biki ebitutuuseeko yes obeera n'emikono nga gikyamye era tufaayo nnyo okukola n'eddwaliro okulaba nga sajjale tuzikola akyamye emikono gitereere akyamye ensinga takyasobola kukyuka atereere kwega kye tusobola okukolako okuba tetusobola kuzzaawo omuntu nga bwe yali naye omuntu agenze n'agula asidi mutwalo gumu ogw'e Uganda ng'agenda kukolako obuvune bwa bulamu bwo bw'olina ku nsi bwonna ng'ogenda kubeera nga weetaaga obujjanjabi obulamu bwo bwonna era ebitongole ebisinga bityo okukola n'abaasidi lwa kizibu ekyo nti expense egenda okugamba okufa ku muntu wa asidi kya bbeeyi nnyo okusinga okwata essente zigenda ku mulwadde wa asidi omu zisobola okukola project mu community ezigula embuzi emu ku emu bw'emanga ntadde obukadde 10 ku acid survival omu okumukola surgery omuntu abalabalamu obukadde obwo 10 bumugulira ebibuzi bimeka ogenda mu community agambe nakola community empowerment project bo batunuulira numbers ne bannange tuve mu kutunuulira omuwendo tutunuulire obulamu. I'm trying to highlight that the acid attack violence issue is many people don't want to get into it because it's costly. People run a cost-benefit analysis of making an impact on numbers. And I'm talking about the importance of quality of life versus the statistics. One survivor is enough to change the world. It took one Hanifa to do what we are seeing today, and we are just getting started. We want to transform lives. Kyatwala omulwadde omu owa asidi nze okuyimirirawo ne ngamba nedda kino kirina okukomera waliwo okubeerawo ekikolebwawo. Etteeka lyayisibwa mu Parliament mu mwaka gw'2012 nga bakozesezza ekyantuukako era bakozesa keesi yange n'amannya gange nga bagamba bannange omuntu bw'ati bw'aba asobola okutuukibwako ekintu ekifaanana bwe kiti muyivu omwami eyamwokya muyivu si batamiivu naye bw'abanga basobola okukola ekintu bwe kiti banaye twetaaga etteeka eri obutabanguko mu maka. Naye ng'ekibuuzo kyange kibadde nti okuva nga 2012 kyekyakolebwawo okuva parliamentary sitting parliament lwe yatuula mu lutuulo olwo lwe baayogera ekintu ekyo. N'olwekyo twetaaga okukwatira awamu tusobole okukumaakuma ba acid survivors, tusobole okusomesa abantu baffe, tusobole okukuba omulanga nti bannange tetwetaaga butabanguko mu maka. Abantu abafumbiriganiddwa nga baagalanye tebeetaaga kubeera nga ate bebatemuliganwa. Ne bwe muba nga mufumbiriganiddwa nga temwagalanye kubanga ekyo tukimanyi nti no mu society yaffe mwekiri. Nze ndi kyakulabirako. Bw'obanga yes owasiza omwana wa munno kubanga baamukulabidde azze kuyambako azze kufuula musajja. Mulabirire mwagale nga bwe waali agadde muwala oba mwagale nga bwe waali agadde maama eyakuleeta mu nsi eno ayagalwe. N'abaana baffe ab'obulenzi tubasomese butya bwe tulina okuyisa abakyala. Abaana baffe ab'obuwala tubasomese nti obufumbo si y'enkomerero y'ensi, nti odde mu bufumbo bakutulugunye olowooze nti gwe obulamu bwakoma. Acid survivors bannange mbakubiriza omulanga okukulembera kaweefube ono w'okubeera nga muyimirirawo olw'eddembe lyammwe, temukkiriza abantu okubayisaamu amaaso, mubasomese. Omuntu akuziimuula muwe obudde. Nze Hanifa nasobola okutuuka wano kubanga nze ndi mwanjulukufu era mwerufu eri buli muntu ambuuza ekibuuzo ky'ayagala. Ne bw'akimbuuza nga kinzivoola kitya, nkimuddamu mu mbeera ejja okumusomesa abeeko ky'ayiga. Nti bw'abanga abadde azanzivoola tugenda okumaliriza emboozi nga tuggyeewo omukwano era oluusi gyali ayomba n'agamba gwe buli omu mu audience naye nga yes buli omu audience ayige kubanga bannange tetumanyi abantu baffe tebamanyi. Twetaaga okusomesa abantu baffe era nkubira omulanga media mutuwe airtime. Tetulina ssente nga bwe mulaba bannange bwe tufaanana. Acid violence, acid wounds ziri expensive, amabwa ga acid gali expensive ga bbeeyi okugajjanjaba. Bannange ne bwe mbeera nga mpeereza miliyoni 2 e Uganda nti zijjanjaba zisobola okukola ku bantu 3 ne ziggwaawo n'onoonya gye ziraze nga tolabayo. Naye ogenda n'otuuka ku wa media n'omugamu naye mpaayo ka airtime tusomese ku ggwanga nti onoompaayo mmeka. Bannange tubasaba tukole obwannakyewa olw'olumu tusobole okusomesa eggwanga twempoweringa abantu baffe twempoweringa abakyala n'abaana baffe abato ab'obuwala n'ab'obulenzi omulembe oguddako gubeere nga gwa ddembe. Bannange mbeebaza okuwaayo obudde bwammwe buno twetaaga rehabilitation eno kubanga nga bwe muwulidde bwe njogedde ebizibu bye tuyitamu seete eno tetugiina twetaaga transitional home abo be mulaba be tulina baavudde mu bitundu by'eggwanga eby'enjawulo basobola okuddayo eka kati tebasobola ne baba bajja mu ddwaliro bwe batyo bwe bajja ne batuuka mu Kampala nga talina waatuukira. Ensonga lwaki twagala rehabilitation center nti omuntu amanya nti bwe ngenda e Kampala nga appointment yange yankya oba ya nnaku 2 nina wentuukira wembeera ndyoke ngende mu ddwaliro kuba mu ddwaliro tebagenda kunsuza nnaku ezo zonna ekitanda tekiriiwo. Bwe nva mu ddwaliro nga sinnadda waka nkyanyiga biwundu nina wentuukira ne basooka bambudaabudako ne banfaako ebiwundu ne biwona ne banzizaayo eka nenzira mu community yange. Nina wendaga nga nina obwetaavu bwe nina wendaga nga noonya skills simanyi bwe nzituukako. Kati Mwami Patrick Menya ayogedde ku nsonga ya resources eziriwo funding aliwo ne grants essente eziri eziyamba abantu abaliko obulemu n'atukubiriza twekolemu obubinja. Ensonga lwaki Center for Rehabilitation tugyetaaga nti groups zaffe ezo tusobola ozikuŋŋaanya ne tugenda ne tugaba ne mutuyambeko tukole akabiina kaffe kano ne tufacilitatinga process neeyitawo ne tubaako gwe tukubidde wano tukoze tutya ne tujuza application ezo wamu nga tukolera wamu ne twekumaakuma ne tukolera wamu y'ensonga lwaki twetaaga ekintu kino. To wrap up in English, I'm just emphasizing the point for the rehabilitation center that the reason we need it is most patients come for medical reviews, but they don't have any connection in the city. And that's where the referral hospital is. So the reason one of the other reasons we need this is survivors who are coming from up country need a place to stay when they are going for their medical reviews. When they are coming from surgeries, they need a transition place to rest and heal before they can go back to the community. That is one of them. Also, the funding that the gentleman from the Ministry of Gender talked about, funding for people living with disabilities. If we are to create those groups, and we need to put in the applications and get our groups registered, this resource center, that's why we are calling it Rehabilitation and Resource Center, would help facilitate the process of creating these groups and getting them registered and making sure that we connect them to the resources where they are. Thank you so much. Bannange mwebale nnyo mwebalire ddala neebaza buli muntu ali mu room olwaleero mbeebaza mwebale okuwaayo obudde bwammwe era bannaye mbasaba tukwatire wamu buli ekitongole ekiri mu ruumu mbasaba tukwatire wamu agali awamu ge galuma ennyama banne mutukwatireko ffe tuli beetegefu okwataganira awamu na buli kitongole ekikola ku ddembe ly'obuntu n'ensonga endala esobola okugasa abantu abatyobooleddwa eddembe lyabwe. Mwebale nnyo era amanya gange nze Hanifa Nakiryowa eyatandika ekitongole ekyo CERESAV e Uganda era ndi acid survivor era neebaza aba acid survivors bannange okuyimirira ne mbeera bavumu.
Tweyanza nnyo Hanifa, ndowooza obubaka butuuse bulungi. Kakati obudde bwaffe nga bwe mulaba ku puroguramu twagambye 7:30 tujja kuba eyo puroguramu tugimala. Ndowooza tetumaneginze bubi